Welcome to the Lalulah podcast, real life conversations about modern sexuality and how to live a happy, healthy, turned on life. I'm your host, Laura Allen, a holistic health coach and founder of Lalulah, an online platform offering natural erotica toys as well as the educational tools you need to expand your pleasure in and outside the bedroom. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Lalulah podcast. I'm your host, Laura Allen, and today we are interviewing someone who is so dear to my heart. Her name is Rebecca Gunson, and she is the creator of Humming Bee, which is the umbrella of multiple projects including erotic dance, personal lubricants, and sound journeying for women. In this episode, we talk about Rebecca's personal journey into discovering her sexuality, the challenges that she faced, and how she overcame them. We also talk about being shut down in their sexuality and what it means, what it truly means to be an orgasmic woman. We also touch on the importance of sound and how to communicate your voice authentically, and much, much more. Now, one thing I do want to mention about this podcast is that it is a simple recording from Skype, and I went into absolute turmoil trying to find the right gear, the right recording devices, the right software so that I could record this podcast at the sound quality that I desired, but it just didn't work out. And I woke up this morning and I had two options. I could have cancelled our interview and waited to get the right gear so that the podcast could be perfect, or I could have done it anyway. And even though the sound isn't as immaculate as I originally wanted, I'm so glad that I pushed through and did it anyway, because it's about progress, not perfection. And I'm so happy to be bringing this episode to you. She is one juicy, juicy woman, and I absolutely loved recording this episode, and I'm sure you're going to love listening to it just as much. Welcome, sister. How are you today?
All the better for being with you.
Oh, such a great answer. Yum.
Yum, so yum.
Oh, well, I just want to start this off by saying thank you. Thank you, thank you. And I'm so honored to not only have you in my life, but for you to give up your time and your energy to be a part of this podcast and this mission. So, yes, girl, thank you. Let's just dive in, babe. My first question for you is, what color are you today and why?
Oh, I feel like today I'm yellow because I feel this feeling of this golden humming bee feeling, which feels very queeny and royal and abundant. And I'm looking at you and you're in a yellow room, and I've been looking at my branding, which is all like around the bee and the yellow and the heart and just warmth. And so I'm feeling really yellow in this moment today. Yellow is my color. Warm yellow.
Yeah. Like a radiating,
like a beehive.
Yellow. Yeah. Awesome. Amazing. Thank you. So I like to start off my podcast with a little bit of background story. So I'd love to know, when did your health journey begin, and what was the tipping point for you that made you want to start taking responsibility for your health and your happiness and your sexuality? Was there
was there like a specific moment? Was there a certain event that happened, or was it more of a gradual process? Yeah, just tell me your story.
Cool, great question. I feel for me that there were a few pivotal moments. One was when I was living in the city in Auckland, and I was drinking a lot and going to parties and working in an office. And I just remember being on the train one day and thinking, I'm not going to live like this for much longer. And I didn't know what that feeling was, but something in my being knew that my path was going to dramatically change. And from there, I worked in Talabudra Valley at a retreat center. And I had some incredible awakening experiences with people that, were really pivotal in what felt like a shift in my understanding of being in the world. And I had this healing session, and I remember walking out into the bush, and I was in Australia, and I just heard these cicadas vibrating, and it felt like all of my senses and my whole body opened, and I felt this deep, deep connection with myself and with nature and with sound. And it was almost like the cicadas were giving me a message. And after that, I moved to Byron Bay, and that really continued my process of learning about holistic health through food and yoga and different modalities. But I think another huge part of my journey was when I was in Bali, and I was really delving deep into women's embodied alchemy work, which is a combination of somatic movement and using the voice as a tool for moving energy and actually starting to move in a more feminine way, which was quite different to the yoga classes I'd been doing, which were more structured Ashtanga. And it was like I was getting this feeling of what it's like to be around women in circle and song and movement, and it was this different space of tapping into the intuition of the body's wisdom and the intuition of the feminine. And it was so foreign to me. I hadn't grown up in backgrounds that supported that, but something in me deeply remembered, and my body started to open, and that then really guided me into working a lot with sound and movement. And so much sexual energy and expression started to open in my body. And on the flip side of that, I experienced a lot of my human self and trauma, shame around sexuality. And so my way of working through that was through dancing my sexuality and my expression, and then also allowing my voice to be a tool to move energy and open to joy and ecstasy within my body. And so becoming more intuitive with these practices. And it's been such a wild ride of experiencing numerous modalities and connecting to myself and to nature. And it's been amazing. I mean, I've had so many teachers and explored a lot, but I feel like it's been a continual coming home to feeling to feeling. Really.
Yeah. So it sounds like it definitely hasn't been a linear experience, but an experimental one.
No. Absolutely. I feel like I've been initiated into the path of Shakti, which has been wild and chaotic and a lot of movement and a lot of growth and a lot of being ripped apart. And there's been chaos and there's been darkness and there's been ecstasy. And it's been really, really, really feeling that untamed feminine that's wanting to come through and just say, hey, I'm here, and I will be seen, and I will be acknowledged, and
Yeah.
there's a different way of doing this, and yeah, it can be incredibly liberating, and also it takes a lot of courage to take on this other way of being and exploring the energy within us and life.
Yeah.
Mm.
Absolutely. And for any of our listeners who aren't necessarily up to date with, or up to date, it's not quite the right word, but who aren't aware of this terminology, what is your definition of Shakti?
Shakti. Shakti is, for me, it's the feminine, it's energy, it's movement, it's creation, it's these different aspects of who we are, and the life force that moves through into our beings and creation. And the flip side of Shakti is Shiva, which is more the pillar, and it's the mental, and it's the discipline, and it's the focus, and it's the logic, and it's the space that can hold all of that. So yeah, it's very important to have both, of course, but I think the Shakti, yeah, that don't need to delve too much into that, but that's the overall motion. It's very the untamed creation that's just beautiful, and
it's
comes
eternal.
without form. Yeah.
It's eternal, it's abundant. It's never the same. It's always changing.
Always moving.
You can never do Shakti the same. It will always be unique and different every single time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's a wild ride.
So much to speak to that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of leads really nicely into the next question, which is talking about some of the challenges that we face, because we sort of go from living this like quote unquote normal life, the sort of like the popular life, I guess. And then we break away from that, and we decide that we're going to sort of follow our curiosity and deep dive into whatever it is we're doing. And that can be so many things for many people. It can be hugely scary, confronting, lonely, all of those things. So I'd love to know about a couple of the specific challenges that you have faced, how you've overcome them.
Wow. I love these questions. For me, one of the biggest challenges I feel was breaking out of the mold and the norm and the death of who I thought I was, and how people viewed me and related to me in terms of maybe friends and family, and then the courage it took to keep moving towards my passion and my truth, even if that felt confusing and also even uncomfortable for other people. And my initiation with, and I guess how I moved through that challenge, was to surround myself with environments and people that were also quite like-minded, to be able to bounce ideas off and do our embodied movement and create a support of other people that were also opening to a new way of being. And my other challenge was really opening to my voice, because that was probably the biggest challenge, because they say, that your biggest challenge can also be your greatest gift to offer. And when I opened to my voice, it was the most beautiful and painful thing in the same time, because I realized how much I had suppressed. And then on the flip side of that, the the incredible tool that we have to move energy and emotion and liberate ourselves through song and through tone, and the sadness of that we have forgotten the medicine of sound and of song. And as a woman, to be able to open to my pleasure and my allowing orgasmic states of being through sounding and moving through all of those barriers of whether it sounds wrong or what people think, and the depth of the primal sound that can come through. And so my challenge of that was, when I open to that, how then do I allow myself to be in the world with people that are not as open to sounding and expressing in that way, without dimming my light too much, but not wanting people to feel uncomfortable, or I don't know if uncomfortable is the right word, but probably my biggest challenge was, how do I keep learning and being initiated into this sound, and finding spaces to do that. So I spent a lot of time in nature, really, really singing with the earth and doing my toning, and living in houses that I felt comfortable to sound my pleasure and sound my pain. And that has been my greatest challenge, because I can pretend or operate, in normal environments, but if I don't give myself space to dance and sound, the energy becomes really blocked, and I know that I have the ability to move it. So it's like when you have the capacity and you have this deeper understanding, you can't really forget or go back to another way of operating, because you're open to your body's innate wisdom, and there's something deeper that is moving through you. So
yeah, you can't unknow what you know.
No.
Yeah, and it is. We'll definitely be coming back to the sound and the sounding and the sound work that you offer later in the podcast. But I have heard you multiple times singing and sounding now, and it is just, my whole body is covered in goosebumps right now. It is otherworldly. So yeah, yes. And I really honor you as well, because it does take so much courage to not only tune in and listen to your intuition and understand what it is that your body wants and needs and what your purpose is, but then to actually follow through and do it, especially when it is not the societal norm. I mean, there could be people out there listening to this podcast right now going, she goes into the bush and sings at the earth. What? And it's just, and yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff in this space is quote unquote weird, but it feels so good. And you just know, like, your whole body, your heart, your soul, everything, your entire being just knows that this is what you need to be doing right now. And it is beyond fulfilling. Am I right in saying that?
Oh, yeah, it actually brought up some emotion, and I had a slight tear in my eye, because, yeah, it has been challenging, but every time it brings me home to myself, and I've had to let go of this feeling of being weird, because really I feel like a lot of us that are opening to our gifts, it can be a bit feel a bit weird and not knowing how to bring it through. But then there's this devotion, actually, what I feel, that comes through in remembering the medicine of song and dance and Indigenous traditions, with how they would sing and dance with the earth, and they had the medicine man and woman that would facilitate this. And I've had a journey myself with you could say mental health, or depression at times, and sound has been my way of always being able to bring myself home, whether it's putting music on or sounding, and I do feel like it's like it needs to be shared now. This is just this voice work and this sound transmissions are to be shared. So yeah, I'm in full commitment to that right now. Yeah, and I have had people say, "Oh wow, like how do you sing like that?" or "How do you sound like that?" And it's like, yeah, it's really sharing that now. So
Yeah. And
yeah.
I am in full support of you, sister. 100%. 100%. Okay. So I'd like to shift the focus now into sexuality. And in our previous discussions, we've talked a lot about feeling shut down and, suppressed and shamed and not feeling safe to be, fully expressed in this area. So I'd love to hear more about your experience with that and how you have allowed yourself to come out of your shell and continue to do so. Yeah. So fire away.
Oh, this topic is so dear to my heart. So dear to my heart. Because I feel that even when I was exploring health and well-being with yoga and meditation and all these things, it was like there was this side of me that was so wild and wanted to be seen and wanted to express my sexuality. And then the flip side was that feeling of shame and worried about speaking my boundaries and being hurt by men or and so being too much. Yeah, I mean, originally not so much. Originally it was like I was kind of running from exploring intimate relationships because of the shame, and then it moved into me exploring sexuality and dance. And so on the dance floor I was this wild sexual being that I was like, then like, how can a man hold this? Well, this was the story that I told, right? And actually then I realized, well, how can I hold me, and how can I keep showing up to do my self-pleasure practices and dance through the sexual energy that was flowing through me, and give myself full permission to be my juicy self. And it's not like you suddenly get to this point or do this retreat where you're like, oh, I'm totally in my juice, like watch out world. I feel like it's this continual dedication to doing these practices that to bring us back, yeah, to our juice and to our expression. And I have gone through experiences of feeling like totally orgasmic in my whole body and being, that I'm like, whoa, like how do I be in the world like this? And then learning how to circulate the energy and learning how to move that into creativity and business and up into my heart, to just feel that absolute love and compassion for myself and for the people in my life. And it's such a powerful energy. And I'm continually learning about different practices and different ways of expressing and learning. Yeah, I'm so passionate about this topic.
Yeah. Yeah, and there is so much. I feel like the words orgasmic woman can come really loaded, and I feel like they can set you up with a lot of expectations of how we should be feeling and how we should be, like what our experience should be in bed. And gosh, just yeah, it's a very loaded term, being a
Mm.
wildly orgasmic woman. But in my experience, being orgasmic and living a turned on orgasmic life really has nothing to do with like riding a wild cock and having multiple orgasms every day.
Mm.
So, um, yeah, I'd love to hear about what being an orgasmic woman means to you.
Mm. Well, I love that you brought this up because my experience actually hasn't been exploring with men that much these past 5 years. It's been exploring a lot with pleasure in life through
Mm.
dancing, through art, through walking in nature, through not not going for that peak orgasmic high um, or yeah, going on a rampage. Going, okay, what I'm trying to say is like how to hold the that juicy energy within your body and being so everything becomes pleasurable, whether you're smelling flowers and sitting with a friend and you're just feeling that energy move through your whole body and it just brings you so much joy and pleasure
Mm.
um and being so present in that moment that there's this fullness of not needing to get anywhere or go anywhere or prove anything or be anything because you feel so full with this energy moving through your body that you can just sit and glow and yeah I feel that when you have that understanding and that wisdom and also it's like there's this I know how to pleasure myself and I yeah I don't it's probably the not seeking the external validation or seeking something outside of myself to bring me that pleasure or that peak. It's this continual deliciousness of life, of feeling the ecstasy of life and
Mm.
exploring the wisdom and the deliciousness of the female body after probably a lot of us have been used to living more in that masculine way and just reclaiming our right to explore this body temple that we have been gifted.
Oh, woo, I don't know. Yeah, I love that. Oh my gosh. I just need a moment. I need a moment to fully receive what you just said because that was yum. And it's so true. I mean, I notice that when we're together, I mean, even just sitting down with you and looking at you is an orgasmic experience because we're both so used to enjoying the pleasures of life and holding that energy within ourselves. And just when we're in each other's presence, we really feed off that together. And it's just,
Yeah,
woo.
absolutely. Surrounding yourselves with other juicy women that you can experience that state of being with because it almost heightens it and we give each other permission to see ourselves in our full juice because so often we've shut each other down as women with
Mm,
jealousy or competition and comparing and like when we can come into a space with each other and I mean with you all the time we're just able to radiate and rise together and just feel pleasure together and it doesn't mean that we need to take it to another level but it's just like it's so yummy to be in that space as
yeah.
women together.
Absolutely.
Mm,
I love that. Also, I
mm,
like what you said at the end as well. I mean, I think there's a lot of it can be confusing when you're experiencing so much pleasure, but I think there's a lesson in learning to be nourished and fulfilled by this orgasmic energy and your connections with your sisters and your brothers, but not necessarily needing all the time to act on it in a sexual way.
mm,
Um, yeah, so that's a nice little point that you raised there at the end too. Thanks for that.
mm, mm.
I'd like to circle back to the sound and the
Mm,
sounding, because
mm,
I just think it's such an important part of this topic, and not only within sexuality, but in life as well. How we speak is, and how we communicate our needs is so integral to our health and happiness. And by opening up those pathways in our throat, um, can just be, so profoundly transformative.
mm.
Um, so I'd love to talk about your experience with sounding and intimacy and sex.
Mm. Cool. Um, yeah, again, the voice piece has been huge for me. I think number one was because of the shutdown I experienced sexually so much in my life, that when I started to self pleasure and explore sexuality and intimacy, I I mean I'm very sensitive to energy as it is, and then dance, I was able to drop into these deep, deep spaces of feeling that when I was exploring sexually, I felt that the voice was such a key piece for me to really open and keep feeling, because if we've experienced shutdown a lot in our lives and we haven't had a channel of expression, then there are blocks there, and often we try reach the um the peaks or the juice too fast. And for me, using sounding the pain or some uncomfortability that may have been there, and then what I was experiencing was the deep, authentic pleasure that started moving through my body,
Mm,
because I was able to sound through all of it and not block it or say, okay, that's I'm going to avoid that area. It was like this, and so that gave my body permission to keep opening and actually clearing some of that blockage within the womb and yoni. If I'm able to say yoni, I feel like I can on this.
yeah,
um
absolutely.
and so I actually was doing a lot of the voice work, and I was experiencing really pleasurable spaces within just doing that. And then when I worked with the sexuality piece, a tantra teacher in Bali, he helped me really keep coming back to my authentic sound and that primal, pleasurable, orgasmic sound. And then when I was using sound, I was working a lot with yoni eggs and pleasure wands, so that I could experience that myself before I was with a partner. And then when I entered into a partnership, because I'd become so comfortable with my sound, I didn't feel um, embarrassed by it or
Mm,
anymore, because I was experiencing so much pleasure with my sound, and it became my norm. And I'd always given myself full permission that I was the same when I was in a sexual partnership too. So,
mm,
and that actually supported him and other people that I've been around to allow themselves to use sound to deepen the pleasure and to move the energy. And I think it's a really key piece, because we've shut down our voices and shut for often from a young age we've been told, oh, that's a wrong sound, or don't be too loud, or la 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 la.
mm.
So
Yes,
reclaiming our voices is really a key piece, I feel. Mm.
yes. Oh, there's so much juice in what you just said. I love
Mm.
how you talked about using sound to uh, move the grief or whatever emotion may come up when you're pleasuring or having a sexual experience with a man or anything really, because we store so much in that area, and a lot of people don't know that um, there's just so much numbness in there, and once you start to massage it and trigger it, then
Mm.
all this stuff can come out, and using voice as a channel to process that
Mm.
just opens up to a whole new level of deeper pleasure. And that's
Mm.
amazing that we now can work with tools like that.
Mm.
And expectations around what that sound is going to sound like. Oh my gosh, I know that I certainly do not sound like, you know, like a porn star, for example. I don't sound like that. Sometimes I sound like a dying boar in the forest.
Absolutely.
You know, like it's just,
absolutely.
and
dying boar in the forest.
like like in a sexy way, of course, but but oh my God, it's giving yourself permission to release that authentically, which can be so scary, especially with a partner if you haven't done that before. And it's about feeling trust and feeling safe and surrendering and just fully letting go and being a fully woman. Yeah.
Can
And
I speak to that part with the container as well? Because sometimes it can be really confronting when you start to give yourself permission to fully sound your pain and your pleasure, and whether it's with yourself or with a partner, just to create that strong container, because so many people don't go there, and I am also the same, because you're a bit afraid of what people are going to think or what that sounds like, or whether you're safe to go there. And so just creating that container is super powerful, so you can keep going there and not keep triggering the shutdown.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And not expecting that container to form overnight, and not expecting that container to be there in every experience that you have. I mean, if I'm going to be really honest, I've been seeing the same man, my partner, for a while, and we're still building that container, and I know that I can, even myself, compare or put expectations or judgments on the sort of experience that we're having, but I need to practice, compassion and slow down and just understand that this is our process, and relax into the opening, and no matter how long it takes, and just continue to open, just keep opening, without pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's like the not trying to get to the peak orgasm as well, isn't it? That's just like the continual showing up of what is, and support and love and patience.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, okay. Well, to wrap up this podcast, I have some final quick cues, I call them. They're kind of, they're like quickfire questions. So I would love to know, how do you cultivate more pleasure in your life? I feel like I already know the answer, but we're going to do it again anyway.
Yeah, dance and sounding is for sure my go-tos, and I just get so much pleasure from just being out in nature. It's like a full body cellular like yum that I get. I just find nature so sexy and delicious. So singing, dancing, and touch as well. Actually, I really love touch, and I someone that is kind of is able to tune into the more subtlety. Straight away my body just goes into deep like pleasure.
Yum. All right, the next question is, what have you learned about self-love recently?
Oh, wow. So much. What's coming through right now is I've been working a lot with my inner child to allow her to feel really safe and nourished. And self-love for me is taking time for myself every day to do my practice that brings me back to my heart and my being. And slowing down to feel and intuitively moving from one thing to the next without push, but from flow and from love. And self-love for me is showing up to give myself what I need to be in my full expression, to be in the world in service and expression of love. Yeah.
Epic.
Don't know if that sounded a bit waffly, but yeah.
Perfect. It's all perfect. The next question is, what is your number one sexy self-care ritual that you are practicing currently?
Probably I love doing like some embodied erotic dance, and then I've been making a sensual massage balm called Nectar and doing some self massage with that and creating like a really yummy space to do that, lighting some incense or sage and creating a yummy container for me to drop into pleasure. Yeah.
And the final question is, who is the most inspiring mentor for you at the moment and why?
Oh, you know what? I have to say, my friend Sigourney Bell that I'm working with at the moment, that's birthing this woman's embodied erotic dance performance, and she's an incredible tantra practitioner, and I'm just really inspired by her because she seems to be actioning a lot of what we are wanting to bring to the world. And I think I'm really inspired by women that are just so in their power and their juice, and they're stepping out into the world, and they're supporting other sisters to really share their gifts and holding a strong container for that to come through, that real balance of the Shiva and Shakti. And I mean, my mentors are actually my friends, like you, and I've some amazing friends in my life that I just am in awe of their constant dedication to living in a more feminine, pleasurable way, and just feeling all of what that is, and continually showing up. I'm just so inspired. Yeah, my friends are huge mentors for me. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Mm.
I love that. Thanks, girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and Sig is amazing. I will put a link to her in the show notes as well. And I know that you're also working on birthing and actioning a lot of things yourself at the moment. So do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So my umbrella for kind of my business is called Humming Bee, and I'm starting to sing more at performances, and also creating my my vocal program, which is called Vocal Nectar, which is a lot around what we've been talking about with sound and working with sexual energy, and really creating a space for women and men to be able to express their own unique sound and tone, as well as allow their own soul song to come through, essentially. And then the other piece with Sigourney is she's creating this Wild Grace, which is women's erotic dance performance, which I'm bringing to New Zealand with her. And it's really about allowing us as women that have been kind of experiencing the dance world and dancing through our eroticism, and bringing us out onto the stage to really be seen in this devotional aspect of this. So those are kind of the projects I'm working on at the moment, and I'm really excited to start sharing more. Got some workshops coming up, and working with Sigourney in Australia, doing voice on her immersions, and we've got one coming up in Auckland on Waiheke Island. So yeah, there's a lot of exciting things. It feels like a real coming out of hiding and sharing now. So I'm excited.
Yeah, amazing. And I'm going to link to you and all of your work in the show notes as well, so people can find you, as well as the dance immersion that's happening. Oh, yes.
Yeehaw.
Yum, yum, yum.
Yum, yum, yum.
Oh, B, my love, I adore you. I love you. I don't even have the words to tell you how much I love you, but I know that you can feel how much that I love you.
I can. It makes
Yeah.
me smile and I'm laughing. I'm so
Yeah.
happy that you're in my life and we get to share this
Mm,
path together.
absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll have to do another one, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We're always shape-shifting. There'll be more to share at some stage.
There definitely will.
If you enjoyed this episode, hit like and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And don't forget to share it with someone who you think could benefit from hearing it too. You can also sign up for Lalulah news and stay up to date with all the juicy content that we only share on email. And I want to take a moment to honor you for following your curiosity and prioritizing your pleasure in this way. And until next time, thank you so much for listening, and I'll be back with another episode soon.